Hello, beautiful friends. Thank you for tuning in. Just wanted to hop on here tonight and share some messages from the heart. Very intense energy, yeah. I don't even know where to begin. I know I always say that, but it's always just surprising me. And really, I've been feeling a lot of silence. A lot of silence. And I've learned to honor that. I've learned to appreciate that and just dive deep into the silence, and has a lot, you know, as cliche as it sounds, the silence has a lot to say. So it's been a pretty interesting time. And there's a few things I've been sitting with that I've been really wanting to share, and I just haven't really known how to put it into words. Having to do with sovereignty, being sovereign, and honoring yourself, and expressing yourself, expressing your truth. That's been a theme for a while, and it really is, because I find a lot of the times being sovereign and all the different ways that we are being asked to stand in our sovereignty now is often not even how we maybe expected it or even thought of sovereignty being. So, long story short, I've come to find more and more that being who you really are, like really just being who you are from your heart, unapologetically, is one of the greatest services you can do for humanity, in teaching them to be sovereign and showing them that you can be who you really are. It's safe. It's safe to be who you really are. And that can manifest, again, in many ways we don't often expect. We've obviously seen the very, the need to be sovereign in the way of your rights, standing up and living in your truth, your freedom, your liberties. But there's also other manifestations too of being able to say no when you want to say no, being able to honor yourself and do what you need to do, say what you need to say, regardless of how other people are going to respond. Sharing your gifts with the world. For yourself. Sharing those things in you that just want to be expressed. And I don't mean in the way of like slapping other people with your energy. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean just being who you are. Because there's so much judgment. We already judge ourselves so much, and especially now that it's been so quiet, I can really hear that judgment. And it's really kind of trippy because it's my judgment, it's people I know's judgment, people I don't know's judgment. Especially if you're an empath, it's like you're starting to hear other people's thoughts. It's kind of insane because it's like a whole new level of where does my energy end and where does their energy begin. And it's all connected, it's all one. And it leads me to the very important point, reminder that, thoughts are energy, emotions are energy. These aren't just, this isn't just some physical thing that's like trapped in your head. Thoughts are energy. So it's very fluid. When you're always connecting to people's thoughts, even if you don't know, even if it's subliminally, and the more you become aware, the more you awaken, the more you start trusting yourself and being able to kind of hold this presence and this, like, presence is the only word I can say, this awareness and some level of silence, it really becomes amazing how much you can, especially as an empath, you're always feeling other people's energy. And when you feel other people's energy, that's almost enough to know what they're thinking. But you can really, start to hear these thoughts, and you can ask yourself, are these even my thoughts? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But I don't think that any thoughts really belong to anyone, because again, they're fluid and they're always traveling. And depending on where your vibration is at, where your resonance is at, that's basically like a radio where you're going to be tuning into thoughts. Those are where you're going to start picking up those thoughts. That's why your thoughts can vary a lot in a single day, depending on your emotions and your vibration. But back to what I was saying. I know this is like all over the place, as always, but it's all going to be connected. So you share thoughts with all kinds of people. You share thoughts with people you live with. You share thoughts with people who are on the same level as you, even if you don't know them. You have to remember the external is just like a reflection of what's really going on within us. It's really profound how connected we are and how accessible telepathy is right now. So much. So much. Never underestimate what you can say to someone through telepathy. Because if they're awake, they'll somehow get that message. And if they're not, they'll probably still get the message. They just won't really know how or why. And I don't know, depending on who they are, how they're going to respond to that message is a whole other story. But it's worth it. It's worth a shot. But I'll get on more on that in a little bit. But I'm just trying to, demonstrate how these thoughts and emotions, it's energy, it's fluid. So my point for explaining that is just being, again, aware of your thoughts. Are they your thoughts? Are they your judgments? Or are you picking up on the hive mind? Because the hive mind, the groupthink, the collective, the mind control, whatever you want to call it, that humanity's been in, has been so controlled that every time you try to step out of that groupthink mentality, even in your own head, you can hear the judgment. You can feel and hear like the critical judgment, and it's those voices, you know what I mean? It's those voices judging you for anything. It could be, just trying to rest. It could be trying to sing a song you like. It could be anything. Or it could be, I don't know, what's an example? Anything that is like breaking out of this slave mentality. Anything that's breaking out of this slave paradigm. And again, it's not always what you think, We always think of it as like fighting for your rights, and that's true, that's part of it, and there's been a heavy emphasis on that, because obviously humans haven't really been free here for a long time, so we're breaking out of that mentality. But even just on an emotional level, even just on a mental level, even just expressing ourselves authentically and not people pleasing these thoughts, not people pleasing these judgments in our own head. Are they our judgments? Are they someone else's judgments? Both. Again, it's kind of foggy on where that separation is, and really there is no separation. So just be aware of that, and that's really what I'm getting into, because that's something I've had to find. And I think a lot of us, we're all more sensitive to it than we even realize. Once we really start, observing these thoughts and where they're really coming from. When you feel like you need to have solitude, when maybe you have to say no to someone's plans, maybe there's something you want to share, maybe you want to share some artwork that you drew. Maybe you want to share a poem you wrote. Maybe you want to share a song you wrote that's original and raw and real and from the heart. And it's beautiful. And it's so inspiring and encouraging to see people do that. But that's really not in the group think. That's not in the group think. That's not safe for the whole group. Because, if you're original, if you're an artist, if you're a poet, if you're, a real trendsetter, if you're someone who has these original things from the heart, there's a lot of people who are really scared of that. They're really scared of that level of freedom and intimacy and rawness and sovereignty. I hope that makes sense, because I can feel it too. I feel it too. It's very strange, and I think it has to do with our history and the programming of trying to keep people all like standardized, like everyone needs to be the same. Because every time you get original art, original ideas and creations, that is what really starts breaking people out of the mind control. It's kind of more smooth than, I feel like last year was really political and it's so divisive. And it's amazing how things like art and just being raw and real is something that wakes people up all across the board even more. And that's why they fear it. They fear that genuine human soul, that genuine human power. So I think there's just like this huge I'm just feeling this so intensely right now. It's really emotional. Just like letting your spirit come out and not being afraid of what people are going to say about you or judge you. And really, it's for you. That's the beauty of it. Because just that being expressed, when things come from your heart, not from your ego, but when things come from your heart, especially when they're different, when they're unique, when they're original, when mainstream culture might not even understand them yet, those are the things that like God wants to express. Those are the things that activate codes in people that are beyond language, that are beyond this paradigm. It's so beautiful. So I guess that's really what I'm trying to say here. I know it's a little abstract, but I think in the past, again, especially the empaths and sensitive people, we've had to learn to set these boundaries for ourselves. We've had to learn to say no when we mean no. We've had to learn to not people please people's egos, regardless of how they're going to respond, and stand in our truth and stand in our sovereignty with love and compassion. But firmness, and that's a whole other thing I'll get to too, that firmness. But now it's like even deeper, because it's not only on a physical level of like saying no to plans or these more physical things. It's like it's on an energetic level, these energetic, in a way, like energetic boundaries with these thoughts, and just being aware, not judging them, judging the judgment. That's a loop. You know how the mind loves its loops. But in the same way you learn not to people please people just for their own ego, the same way you don't want to people please these thoughts. Again, it's just really interesting when you start to break out of that mind control. We're all doing that. If you're here, you're doing that more and more and more, all in our own unique ways. The things you start to observe in the inner realm, especially in the mind, because again, the mind is where a lot of the, if not almost pretty much all of the programming has taken place in the mind. So you start to notice a lot of really interesting phenomena the more you break away from the hive mind, from the group think, from this I don't know what to call it other than hive mind. You know, it's so like defensive too. It's so critical of anything that comes outside of it. And it's just like this network. It's like a network of mind control, of minds that are in such fear right now that they're afraid to break out and be who they really are. But when people start being who they really are, that's when we're going to start seeing real freedom, real sovereignty, actual respect for ourselves and for each other. Because you know, you can't, people aren't going to respect people until they respect themselves. And most people in this hive mind fear don't have much self-respect. You know, that's why they're in the hive mind. That's the programming of the matrix, is to break that down. You know, that's why conditional love for yourself, having conditional love for yourself is torture. Because you know that in this life things are always changing. And you have to have that unconditional love for yourself no matter what arises. And that's when you come out of duality. It's so true that, you know, the way people respond to things is how they respond to themselves, you know, and that's not our responsibility, but we are our responsibility. So if you're an empath and you're easily, you're very sensitive, you can feel people and you can start to hear their thoughts, you know. And when you're in the same room with someone, you're in the grocery store, it's like it's like a movie theater and there's like 50 screens. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it really can't be that crazy. And that's a little bit about what I've been going through and really honing in on, because I know that's, you know, those things aren't my responsibility, but how I am and how I'm responding is my responsibility. And the fact that all these people are, you know, kind of so impeding in a way, impeding on my reality the way they are, their energy is not my responsibility. But again, how I respond is my responsibility. And so I don't blame them for that, because I know that they don't really know any other way, and I've been there too, and there's many things that I am still there on. So there's no judgment, you know. Try to get away from that ego and come back into the heart. And again, you know, that's the paradox. Lots of paradoxes lately. I've been just like embodying these paradoxes. It just blows my mind. But that's the paradox. That's the multidimensionality of this reality. You have to remember again and again and again is you have to take responsibility for everything in your being, because that's how you are able to shift and take back control in a way. If you're constantly blaming other people for whatever it is, then, you know, it's one of those things where choose your hard. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, you know, you can blame other people, but then you're constantly going to be a victim and you're going to have no power, and being a victim is really hard. Or you can take responsibility, and taking responsibility is hard. It hurts, you know, but that's when you gain back control over your life and you're no longer a victim and you remember you're sovereign and you're empowered. And that's my biggest message here too, is just have firmness. You know, have firmness in who you are and focus in who you are, in that, you know, we get through this. You know, we're here for a reason. We are always victorious. The light always wins. You know, I know you can get sucked in some of these shadow realms and things like that, but, you know, through my own I am presence, I'm here to remind you that, you know, what we are doing here is worthwhile. And we are not victims. We are more powerful than we know. You know, I do Reiki sessions, and that's like the message that comes through the most easily, is just like, you are more powerful than you know. And even for myself, you know, every single day is a new day of new potential, new power. So it's always amazing. It's always amazing. And if you are feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated, because I think, you're not alone. Like, as an empath, and I know that the many empaths are feeling this, especially in the past year, that sensitivity has like multiplied by a lot, to the point where everything is changing. Like, you have to remember that too. Like, you're constantly going to be finding that things that used to work aren't going to work anymore. And it's helpful to always remind yourself, and I have to do this for myself too, when that contrast arises, especially if it's something you're really attached to, because that's when you can really suffer. But every single time, no matter if you're attached to it or not, when that contrast arises, when problems arise, when challenges arise, when things go wrong, when you feel like you're not where you're supposed to be, those are opportunities. Those are opportunities to shift. We forget, and we start to dance with fear sometimes when that happens. And we all do it. But this is just a reminder for you then, because I know I need that reminder too. When those things arise, it's literally, if it's giving you an opportunity, and if it's really challenging, again, the harder the challenge, the bigger the breakthrough. And you will always break through. It's just like I was saying, you will always break through. You will always be victorious. You're eternal. You are infinite. You're here for a reason. And you are not alone. Truly not alone. Many of us have very lonely paths right now, but I think there's a reason for that we don't quite understand yet. And learn to embrace that. Learn to embrace that silence. Learn to embrace that solitude, because some of the best times, in my life are in those moments when you just learn to harness it, learn to lean into it, learn to free fall and trust and know yourself, and that's probably the last thing I'll say. There's so many new ways of being. Again, things that used to work aren't going to work anymore, and we're having to let go of a lot of that control, and really surrender to God, surrender to our higher self, surrender to that love that has a bigger picture than we do. It really is like a trust fall. It really is like a dance between your human self and your higher self, in which there is no separation. And it's always here. Even if you can't always hear it, again, sometimes it's silent because it's meant to be silent. It's only the ego that wants to judge and say something's wrong, or say I'm disconnected, I'm not where I'm supposed to be, like something's wrong with me. Every time, the ego is always on that. The ego is always saying there's something wrong with me. And you just gotta, have mercy for that scared little ego and just let it know that it's okay. It's okay. It's all part of the master plan. Like, it's fine. Whatever you're feeling, wherever you are, especially if you're in a challenge, lean into it. Kick your heels into that reality and harness it, because you're about to have a breakthrough. A lot of us are feeling that right now. This has been like more challenging energy has come through lately, but it's, I think it's more meant to just motivate you into being who you really are, and start letting go of all these old ties, all these old cords, all these old energies, to make room for the new blessings that are coming. And if again, I was going to say, if you are feeling overwhelmed or overstimulated by these things, I have an article. I'll put it in the description. I just wrote an article about cutting cords, and so I won't get too much into that, but that is so helpful. I had to have a whole day of like, it's a long story, but very helpful if you're an empath and you're feeling overwhelmed by people, even people you love, overwhelmed by going to the grocery store, overwhelmed by these, like, just feeling everybody's emotions and thoughts and energy, to the point where it can literally actually be like paralyzing. if you get really backed up with all of these different ties and cords and obligations. So it's really helpful to learn how to cut those cords, and do it as much as you need to. Just be free. Be free. Let go of all these attachments and contracts and things you have with people and places and things. And just be present. Be present. And trust yourself and honor yourself no matter what. That's my number one priority is, being present and honoring that presence, honoring that God within. That's my number one priority. If something doesn't align with that, then, it's like, I'm sorry, but that probably wasn't meant to be. And your life will begin to change a lot. And you'll have to let people respond how they're going to respond. And, that's another paradox is, things get lost, but things are never actually lost. Everything is impermanent, but everything is eternal. You lose something in your life and it comes around again even better. The more you can just trust, the more you can let go of that resistance and just ease into it. We have all we need within. And again, and another tip too, if you're struggling with anxiety, come into the body, come into the heart. Come into the breath, because God is in every single breath. And watch that mind, because that mind can be tricky, and that judgment and that criticism, and it's all starting to merge together. The inner and the outer realm will begin to merge together, So those inner critics might come up externally. Everything that comes up in the external is really just showing you what's going on within. It's not personal. It's only the ego that wants to make it personal. And we have free will, so there's no wrong or right. There's no need to beat yourself up is what I'm really trying to say. Because again, that's the ego constantly trying to punish itself. Just let it go. Just let it go. And be who you really are. The more you align with your heart, who you really are. Not your ego, not your programming. Who you really are, your spirit. The more you work on that internal realm and that presence and that vibration, the more your whole external world is just going to work out for you. The more the external realm is going to just fall into place for you, because it's all coming from within. And again, we have everything we need. I know I was all over the place, but I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I hope that, went together well. Just kind of flowing, intense energies right now, though. So again, just be you. Again, the greatest service you can do for humanity and for yourself is just being who you really are. And you'll be amazed at the things that come out of you. Don't fear it. Don't fear who you really are. I think it's time to really step into our power. Don't shrink down because you're scared people aren't going to be able to handle you. That's just enabling those egos. Again, it's not like, we're slapping people in the face with our energy. It's not about that either. It's just about being who you are. And the more light you cultivate, the more you probably will make people uncomfortable. I felt that a lot. And I was one of those people who would really shrink down because I just feel awkward, just being who I am, until I became aware of that, and I made the decision that I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to enable this paradigm of, conformity. You have to conform to the hive mind, have to conform to the group think, can't be too original, can't be too bright, can't be too creative, can't be too raw and unfiltered and uncensored. No, that's not who we are. We're not all supposed to be the same thing at all. We are so diverse, it's ridiculous. Human beings, we have so much in the human soul, so beautiful, such a gift to be here. And there's so much to express, so much beauty, so much love, so much talent and authenticity. So I really encourage all of you to take heed and be who you are and share everything that you want to share, that you feel called from your heart to share, no matter what your inner critic is saying, no matter what other critical minds are saying. No one who is really aware is going to take the time to hate on you. You know what I mean? Those are the people who need it the most, really, to see that, you can express yourself. You don't have to be what people think you need to be. I'm just so over that. It's like everyone wants to see what, like, the version of you that they like. It's like, that's not reality. It's like, you gotta be who you are, not what people like. That's a huge part of sovereignty. I know I'm going on and on, but it's just so important. It's like, it just really needs to come out. It just like wants to come out. You really just gotta be who you are and let people respond how they respond. Again, if you're coming from your heart, that's your true self. I'm not talking about coming from your ego and slapping people with your energy and all this stuff. I'm talking about coming from your heart and being sovereign and being in your light. That is powerful. People will take heed to that. It will inspire people more than you'll ever know. It will inspire people more than you even know to see humans being who they are unapologetically and not worrying about the group mind, the group thinks judgments and opinions and thoughts and feelings about it. And the more you do that, the more that group think is going to continue to, that matrix, that loop, that group think, that mind control is going to continue to break just by you being who you are. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest piece. It really resonates when you can do that. It's very brave and very bold, and it's not easy because I know those thoughts are very cunning and they really fear that. So be bold, be courageous. It's in you. It's God's source coming out of you for a reason. You never know what might happen. And I honor all of you. I love all of you. Thank you for listening to all of this. And again, definitely check out that article. If you are an empath and you've been having a hard time with these energies, I think that could be really helpful for you, because it's really helpful for me to, start really letting go of these cords and these attachments like on a daily basis, to not get overwhelmed by all the different energies. So much love and gratitude. Have a wonderful day. Beautiful, beautiful beings.